I realized that being so far from my home planet creates its own anxieties.
Jay, what are we gonna do on this huge ship for 3 weeks?
You see, to become good at this, which I have.
Watch out, Major, on your tail.
Remember waking up in the 25th century? One pilot frozen for 504 years, sleek starfighters screaming across the sky, and a future that looked cleaner, brighter, and more confident than anything the real world could offer. Buck Rogers didn't just promise science fiction. It promised a future where humanity had already survived its darkest moment. But behind the chrome corridors and disco soundtracks, something else was happening. The show's star was quietly fighting the scripts. The network was threatening lawsuits. Entire episodes were built from props borrowed from a completely different series. What looked like smooth, confident science fiction was actually a production constantly on the verge of collapse. And the strangest part? The very first episode secretly told you that the world had already ended, and almost nobody noticed. Let's start with number 10.
I've been so many places, but he's very good to me. He's strong.
Number 10. He woke up after the world had already ended. Buck Rogers wasn't a man of the future. He was a survivor of a world that no longer existed. In the show's backstory, Captain William "Buck" Rogers launched into space in 1987 as a NASA test pilot. A life support malfunction froze him solid, turning his spacecraft into a drifting time capsule. He didn't wake up hours later. He didn't wake up days later. He woke up 504 years later. The year was 2491, and while he slept, Earth had destroyed itself. According to the pilot episode, the planet was devastated by nuclear war on a very specific date, November 22, 1987. For viewers watching in 1979, that wasn't some distant science fiction timeline. That was only 8 years away. 8 years until the end of the world. Everything Buck saw in the 25th century, the defense systems, the paranoia, the heavily guarded cities, came from that single catastrophe. Humanity hadn't conquered the future, it had barely survived it. But here's the unsettling part the show rarely admitted out loud. The shining world Buck woke up to wasn't a utopia. It was a fragile illusion built on the ruins of a nuclear apocalypse. And as the series went on, the producers quietly started pretending that apocalypse had never happened at all.
Can I get you something to drink, Buck?
No, thanks. It's a little early for me yet.
Number 9. The future was just a safe zone surrounded by death. Those shining cityscapes you remember? They weren't the future. They were shelters. In the world of Buck Rogers, civilization didn't spread across the planet. It retreated into a handful of fortified inner cities like New Chicago, sealed, protected, and constantly monitored. Everything outside those walls was something else entirely. Radiation-scarred deserts, collapsed infrastructure, and mutants. Humans who'd adapted to the poisoned world in ways the inner city population never could. Travel beyond the defense barrier wasn't an adventure. It was a gamble with your life. Early episodes treated the wasteland like a living threat. Raiders attacked from contaminated zones. Patrols disappeared outside the shield. The outside world wasn't mysterious. It was dangerous, unstable, and very real. This wasn't a triumphant future. It was a fragile pocket of order, surrounded by the consequences of a nuclear war nobody could undo. And then, slowly, the show started pretending that world didn't exist. The mutants disappeared. The radioactive zones stopped being mentioned. The constant danger beyond the walls quietly faded out of the scripts, as if the apocalypse had never happened at all. The future didn't get brighter. The writers just stopped talking about the darkness. And the first place you can see that tension between the darker show they made and the safer show the network wanted appears right at the very beginning. Because the version of the pilot you were allowed to see wasn't the original one.
Jay, what are we gonna do on this huge ship for 3 weeks?
Exactly what we have been doing, enjoying ourselves.
Number 8. The pilot you saw was the safe version. Before Buck Rogers ever reached your television, it played in movie theaters. And that version was different. Darker, sharper, and a lot less polite. When NBC prepared the pilot for broadcast, censors went through it line by line. Dialogue was cleaned up. Edges were sanded down. Anything that felt too rough for a family time slot disappeared. Buck no longer called Wilma ballsy. The profanity vanished. And one of the most brutal moments in the film, the scene where Buck finishes off Princess Ardala's henchman, Tiger Man, was cut down to something much safer. The theatrical audiences had seen a tougher Buck Rogers, and they accepted him without any problem. But television sponsors were another story. NBC didn't want a science fiction hero with sharp edges. They wanted something friendlier, safer, easier to sell between commercials. So the version that worked in theaters was reshaped into something softer for Saturday night television. And that decision created a problem the show never really solved, because Buck Rogers wasn't sure what it wanted to be anymore. Was it adult science fiction with real danger? Or colorful, family-friendly escapism with disco music and robot sidekicks? From that moment on, the show was trapped between those two identities, and no one felt that conflict more than the man playing Buck himself.
You are everything I've ever wanted out of life. And couldn't have.
Number 7. Gil Gerard went to war with his own show. Buck Rogers' leading man didn't just dislike the scripts, he fought them. From the very beginning, Gil Gerard clashed with producers over the show's campy tone. He refused certain comedic lines. He rewrote dialogue without permission. He argued with directors on set. Writers grew frustrated. Some simply walked away. Behind the scenes, the hero of the 25th century was at war with his own series. The conflict escalated until NBC threatened Gerard with legal action just to keep production moving. The network wasn't just fighting ratings or budgets, it was fighting its own star. And here's the part that changes everything. Gerard later admitted he'd hoped the series wouldn't be renewed for season 2. He wanted out. He wanted the show to end. But NBC renewed it anyway. So now you had a series where the lead actor didn't believe in the tone, the writers were exhausted, and the network was using legal pressure just to hold the illusion together. And then season 2 arrived.
Pleased to meet you.
Charmed, I'm sure.
Number 6. Season 2 replaced the show you remember. When season 2 premiered, Buck Rogers didn't evolve. It disappeared. Buck, Wilma, and Twiki were no longer defending a fragile, post-apocalyptic Earth. Instead, they were suddenly aboard a deep space vessel called the Searcher, roaming the galaxy in search of lost tribes of humanity. No buildup, no transition, no real explanation, just a different show. Dr. Hewer was gone, Princess Ardala was gone. The entire premise of defending a wounded Earth vanished overnight. In their place came new characters like Hawk, a stoic birdman clearly designed to fill a Spock-shaped role. The series transformed into something closer to Star Trek, the Searcher wandering like the Enterprise, Buck playing Kirk, and Hawk offering calm, logical counterpoint. Critics noticed immediately, so did viewers, who began leaving in measurable numbers. But here's the cruel irony. Gil Gerard finally got the more serious, exploration-focused series he'd been fighting for, and it failed. The lighter, campier version he disliked had been the one audiences actually wanted. The show that worked was the one nobody making it truly believed in.
No, you didn't. I don't know how we got on in the first place.
Number 5. The villain who wanted more than victory. Every hero needs a great antagonist. Buck Rogers found his in a princess who understood that conquest has many meanings. Pamela Hensley's Princess Ardala became the show's most electric presence. Her draconian empire threatened Earth, yes, but her real obsession wasn't the planet. It was Buck. She didn't just want to defeat him, she wanted to claim him, display him, possess him like a rare prize. Every encounter carried an undercurrent of tension that pure military conflict could never provide. Ardala wasn't trying to destroy the hero. She wanted him to surrender. Her elaborate, revealing costumes became legendary. Her schemes powered the show's most entertaining storylines. When season 2 erased her completely, something dangerous and unpredictable vanished with her. Ardala understood something the sanitized network version kept forgetting. Sometimes the most powerful threat isn't war, it's temptation. And speaking of complicated relationships,
Well, looks as if Miss Cosmos is packing it in for the day.
Number 4. Wilma almost disappeared before she even began. The face you associate with Colonel Wilma Deering almost belonged to someone else. Erin Gray initially declined to continue after filming the theatrical pilot. Producers had already cast Juanine Clay as her replacement. Then Gray reconsidered and returned, but only under specific conditions. The network had one of its own. Wilma needed blonde hair. Gray's natural brunette look was chemically transformed throughout the series into that platinum style that softened her military edge. The change worked commercially. Critic Clive James called Wilma simply sensational, like Wonder Woman with brains. Exactly the balance 1979 television wanted from its female leads. But the question lingered. Why did a high-ranking military officer in the 25th century need to be blonde? What made that detail so important? The answer reveals how much the show compromised itself at every level. Nothing existed without network approval. Nothing escaped the pressure to become more marketable than meaningful.
You see, to become good at this, which I have.
Number 3. This wasn't really Buck Rogers at all. The character you watched bore almost no resemblance to the original science fiction hero. The 1979 version drew from contemporary action heroes rather than Philip Francis Nolan's 1920s creation. This Buck went undercover on covert missions, used charm like James Bond, fought like Steve Austin, and delivered quips like a maverick cop. Critics and producers acknowledged this openly. He was James Bond in space, anything except the square-jawed explorer from Depression-era pulp magazines. This wasn't accidental. The show needed a hero who felt immediately familiar to late 70s audiences. A character from obsolete science fiction wouldn't connect. So they borrowed a personality from current action entertainment and simply called it Buck Rogers. Which raises an uncomfortable question. If the character isn't Buck Rogers, the setting got sanitized beyond recognition, and the format changed completely halfway through. What exactly was this show? The answer is simpler than you think, and more cynical.
I appreciate your help, Buck.
It's my pleasure.
Number 2. The original starfighters were rejected hand-me-downs. Those sleek Terran starfighters defending Earth? They were someone else's discarded first draft. The distinctive Earth defense ships were actually concept designer Ralph McQuarrie's original vision for colonial Vipers on Battlestar Galactica. When that show chose a different design, Buck Rogers inherited the rejected concepts. But the borrowing went deeper. Props migrated between Universal productions constantly. The Landram came from Galactica's storage. Cockpit control sticks were identical. Costumes, effects shots, set dressing moved between shows to minimize costs. This wasn't creative homage. This was financial survival. The show you thought was building a unique vision was actually assembling spare parts from another series, hoping you wouldn't notice. And when it came to building Buck's world itself, the cost-cutting became almost absurd.
This is what you people were supposed to prevent. This cosmos is gone.
Number 1. The 25th century was built from abandoned architecture nobody wanted. Here's the truth about those stunning futuristic cityscapes. They cost almost nothing because they already existed and nobody else wanted them. The production used stock footage of actual structures to portray Earth's future. Those exotic 25th century buildings were really remaining national pavilions from Expo 67. French and British structures still standing in Montreal, gradually deteriorating because nobody had found a use for them after the World's Fair ended. Additional shots came from the Bonaventure Hotel in Los Angeles. Opening credits incorporated stock footage from Apollo 4 and Apollo 6 launches, repurposing real NASA rockets as Buck's fictional spacecraft. Think about what this means. The show's vision of humanity's triumphant future was literally constructed from abandoned remnants of the past. World's Fair buildings that symbolized 1960s optimism, now empty and decaying, dressed up to represent the 25th century. The irony is almost too perfect. Buck Rogers promised you a gleaming tomorrow built on human achievement. What it delivered was yesterday's forgotten structures, filmed from flattering angles, backed by disco to distract you from recognizing buildings you might have visited. The future was just the past, repackaged. That metaphor extends beyond architecture. A 1920s pulp hero, repackaged as a 1970s action star. A serious sci-fi concept, repackaged as campy entertainment. Galactica's props, repackaged as original design. Theatrical content, repackaged for television censorship. Nothing about Buck Rogers was what it claimed to be. It was a show built entirely from repurposed parts, fighting itself at every level, held together by sheer determination despite the chaos. The 25th century Earth you saw, beautiful, confident, technologically advanced, was an elaborate fiction. Just like everything else about the show.
I'll give her
5 minutes and I'll start patrolling the stateroom area.
Bonus fact: when the voice changed, nobody acknowledged the illusion was broken. That distinctive bitty 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 came from cartoon legend Mel Blanc, except when it suddenly didn't, and the show simply pretended nothing had changed. Blanc gave Twiki his memorable vocal personality, but illness forced him to step away during Season 2. Bob Elliott replaced him for 7 episodes before Blanc recovered. No explanation was offered. No in-universe justification. One episode, Twiki sounded different. Later, he sounded normal. The show expected you to simply accept the inconsistency. The series itself received similarly abrupt treatment. When ratings dropped after the Season 2 format change, NBC canceled Buck Rogers mid-season. No finale, no wrap-up, no farewell episode, just gone. The final broadcast was a normal standalone adventure, and then Buck Rogers ceased to exist. A show that fought itself constantly, that never knew what it wanted to be, that built its future from abandoned pieces of the past, simply stopped. The illusion couldn't be maintained any longer. Buck Rogers gave us recycled props, World's Fair architecture dressed as tomorrow, a leading man at war with his producers, and a network threatening legal action to keep its star in line. It promised a gleaming future and delivered repurposed remnants of the past. It wanted to be serious science fiction and got forced into camp, then became serious and failed. Not bad for a guy who'd been frozen for 5 centuries, only to wake up inside someone else's rejected vision of the future.